Hello, my little technocrats. In our previous video, we learned about the invention of computer. We saw how Charles Babbage, the father of computer, invented the computer. We also learned about the first and second generation of computers. Now today, we will talk about the third, fourth and fifth generation of computers. Let's start. So, the third generation of computers, that was in between 1964 and 1971. Now, computers belonging to the third generation became much smaller and worked faster. Now, earlier we saw that the computers were very big. They used to weigh like thousands of kilos and they used to take up the entire room. Now, in the third generation, the computers became smaller, they became compact, and they started to be used. They were started to used in home as well. Let me show you a couple of third generation computers. Now, see, this is a home computer, a third generation computer. Now, as you can see, that it has got smaller in size. You've got a monitor, you've got a keyboard, and you've got a CPU. So they became smaller in size. This is basically a game console attached to a third generation computer. Again, this is another example of a desktop computer, which was third generation computer. It had a TV-like screen, it had a processing unit. Now these slots, they were used for floppies. What are floppies? I will tell you about them. And they were keyboards. So computers, this was due to the invention of integrated circuits. Now last time I told you about transistor circuits. Then this was even further modified and IC, integrated circuits came to process information in a computer. Now ICs are tiny square chips with thousands of transistors placed on them. Like every chip has tiny transistors on them. And instead of punch cards, keyboards were used to input data. Monitors were used for the first time as output device instead of printouts. Now, if you saw that in the first generation and second generation computer, there were no monitors. All the information which we got from the computer was in the form of printout. But from the third generation onwards, we could instantly see the information on the computer screen with the help of a monitor. Third generation computers were in use between 1964 and 1971. IBM 370 and NAV 7500 are two examples of the third generation computers. Some features of third generation computers are listed below. They were smaller, cheaper than their earlier counterparts. Okay, like we saw, they were smaller and they were comparatively cheaper. They used an operating system that allowed running of many different programs simultaneously. Now, what are programs that I explained to you while I was talking about the second generation computer? What happened in third generation computer is that you could have a base operating system. For example, Windows. Windows is an operating system which holds many programs within it. Then there is another operating system called Macintosh. Then you have Linux. These are all operating systems and programs are built on it. To give you an example, like you know about mobile phones. Now there are two major types of mobile phones. One is Android, second is Apple iPhone. Now Apple iPhone or this Android, these are operating system, they are operating platforms. On that you see many apps which are known as programs. So like that, computer also has operating system and programs. Next comes fourth generation computers. The fourth generation has been going on since 1971. Even today, most of us actually use the fourth generation computers. So you can see it looks like the modern day computer. As you can see, this is a modern computer, fourth generation computer. It has a sleek monitor. It has a sleek processor, sleek CPU, sleek processing unit, and it has a nice keyboard with mouse attached to it. So it is normally kind of a computer that you see in your home. See, these are all fourth generation computers. By fixing many integrated circuits into a single unit, scientists developed a new device called the microprocessor, which is a small silicon chip. Now they made the processing. How we started? We started from a vacuum tube. From a vacuum tube, we went to a transistor. From a transistor, we went to a IC. Now from IC, we went even smaller. We made a thing called microprocessor, which is a very small, very tiny silicon chip. Let me show you. Microprocessor, silicon chip. See, this is a tiny microprocessor silicon chip. You can see this. It is very tiny when it comes to a computer circuit. See, Tiny chips, they are put into a computer. And they are very small, very small. So this was invented in the fourth generation of computer. It is capable of processing information from all parts of a computer. It is also called the central processing unit or CPU. Like you have learned in your previous classes, a computer has three types of devices: input, output, and CPU. So CPU is the brain of the computer. The computers that we use today belong to the fourth generation. The use of internet, mouse, and many other handheld devices are some advancements seen in the generation. Like for example, you have joysticks, you have game controllers, you have game pads. These are all found in the fourth generation. Some features of the fourth generation computers are listed below. Computers became more advanced in terms of processing and memory capacities. It led to, now like today you can hold up to terabytes and gigabytes of data. Earlier it used to have just few bits of data. Don't worry about it, we'll learn about bits and kilobytes and gigabytes in our coming chapters. It led to the development of personal computers. Now what happened, that earlier computers used to be only in offices or factories or education institutions or with scientists. Now computers came into home. They became desktop or laptop computers, and they also were known as personal computers. For example, I have my own laptop, my wife has my own laptop, my daughter has her own laptop. So this is how you make all your own personal computers. In 1981, IBM introduced its first computer for the home user, and in 1984, Apple introduced Macintosh. Now let me show you Macintosh. It is a beautiful computer. It was 1984, it was invented by Apple. So see, this is how Macintosh looks. It had graphics, it had images, and it was a very beautiful, pretty little computer, as you can see over here. So this is a Macintosh. This was 1984 Macintosh, and let me show you 1981 IBM computer also. See, this is the IBM computer. Earlier, most of the computers, they used to be in white in color, so you can see it looks like Macintosh itself. Let's move on to the fifth generation of computers. Now, the fifth generation computing devices are based on artificial intelligence. What do you mean by artificial intelligence? Like for example, we all human beings, we are sentient beings. We are all intelligent human beings. That means we have got our own brain. We can think, we can imagine, we can process, and we can work according to our own will. Computers or any other machinery, usually they are artificial devices and they do not have their own brain. They need to be given a command. So what is artificial intelligence is that when a computer device, it learns itself or it can think for itself, it is known as artificial intelligence. The term artificial intelligence was coined in 1956 by John McCarthy at the MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Now, the fifth generation of computer devices are based on this concept of artificial intelligence, which is the ability of computers to think and act like humans. You have seen that there are certain devices or there are certain robots. Like for example, the most common example of artificial intelligence that you have around you is your phones. Like for example, in iPhone, you have Siri, or in Android, you have Google Assistants. So whenever you give them a command, they think and give you a reply. Or you have a system like Alexa. For example, whenever you tell Alexa, you ask Alexa anything, she thinks and she gives you a reply. So it is an artificial intelligence. This technology is still in development stage, though there are some applications such as voice recognition. Siri and Alexa are example of voice recognition that are being used today. The use of parallel processing and superconductors is helping to make artificial intelligence a reality. Now, what is parallel processing? That at the same time, computer is running many processes at the same time. So this is helping in making this a reality. The goal of the fifth generation computing is to develop devices that respond to natural language input and are created of learning and self-organization. Now what we are trying to do, we are trying to give a vocal command to a computer so that the computer can think and act for itself instead of waiting a command from ourselves. Now, artificial intelligence includes the following things: programming computers to play games such as chess and checkers, systems that attempt to reproduce the types of physical connections that occur in animal brains to simulate intelligence, and programming computers to see, hear, and react to other sensory stimuli. Currently, no computer exhibits full artificial intelligence. That means there is no one computer in the world which can do everything by itself. It still needs human help. It still needs human brain. But artificial intelligence is not a very new concept. It has been like human beings have been working upon this. Scientists have been working upon this since a long time ago. Now, let me tell you about a very interesting thing. In May 1997, an IBM supercomputer called Deep Blue. It was a computer, but it was one of the first example of how a computer started to think and started to learn chess by itself, and it defeated the world chess champion Garry Kasparov in a chess match. It was a very legendary moment. Let me show you a photo from that chess match. See, in this photo you can see that this is Garry Kasparov. Okay, he used to be the Grand Master of Chess, the world champion of chess. And this computer that you can see, it is called Deep Blue. Now, Garry Kasparov is playing the chess from himself, and the Deep Blue computer is responding to his moves. But now, in this photo also, you can see that the computer cannot move the pieces of chess by itself. Even though it is thinking over here, it needs a human being to press the command. The computer will tell the human being to press this key or that key, and then the human being will move the chess piece. So, like I discussed earlier, that no computer in the world right now can play or can do anything all by itself. It still needs human help. Here you can see another photo, Garry Kasparov and Deep Blue. This is Deep Blue. They are playing together. But even Deep Blue needed help from a human being. So till now, there is no computer in the world which has gained complete artificial intelligence. So the greatest advancements have occurred in the field of games. The best computer chess programs are now capable of beating humans. Robots are the best example of artificial intelligence. Even you know that there are some robots like Asimov or Alexa or even your Siri. These are robotic programs which are examples of artificial intelligence. Now, in simple terms, the generation of computers can be compared in the following ways. Now, this table, it shows you all the 4 generation of computers together. Now, let's start with the feature. The features of the first generation were vacuum tubes, second generation were transistors, third generation were IC, integrated circuits, and in the fourth generation onwards, we have microprocessors. How input used to be done? In the first generation computer, it used to be with punch cards. Second generation also punch card. Third generation got keyboard. Fourth generation got keyboard and mouse. And now you know cameras and microphones, they are also input devices now. How output was given? In first generation, it was only through printout printers, and second generation only also printers. In third generation, we got monitors and printers. In fourth generation, you have monitors, printers, speakers, etc. Memory used in the first and second generation computer was magnetic drums. In third computers, there were magnetic disks like floppy. In fourth generation computers, we use magnetic disk, and we also use compact disks, and we use DVD, etc. The size used to be very huge in first generation computer. Second generation, it got little smaller. Third generation, it got smaller than the previous generation. And in fourth generation, now you have got compact computers which you can hold in your hand or in your palm also. Speed, the first generation computers were quite slow. Second generation were faster than the first one. Then it got faster and faster till the fourth generation, which works very fast. It works at the speed of our thought. In fact, faster than the speed of our thought. The cost, first generation computers were very expensive. Then it got cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And today you can see that the computers are very affordable. Even we can buy it at our home. Some examples were ENIAC and UNIVAC of first generation. Second generation were IBM 704 and IBM 1401. IBM stands for International Business Machine. It is a company. Today also it makes computer. IBM 370 and NAV 7500 were in third generation. Fourth generation we have Intel Pentium Core, i3 and Macintosh. Okay, so just let's recall quickly. Generation refers to the advancement in the development of computers. First generation computer used vacuum tubes. Second use transistor. Third use IC. Fourth use microprocessors. And fifth generation is based on artificial intelligence. I hope you enjoyed learning about the various generations of computers.